Hey everyone, welcome back to Code with Poonam. It's day 67 of our 100 days of coding challenge in JavaScript. Today's challenge is all about finding the minimum element in an array without using any sorting method. Okay, so let's dive into today's challenge and we will move towards our VS Code. So in the VS Code, if we see, we have here our question along with the sample input and output, right? So what is the question? Let's read out. Write a JS function to find the minimum element in an array without using sorting, right? And here we have our input and here we have our output, okay? So first of all, what we are going to do, we will break this question, okay? So first of all, what we have to write? We have to write a JS function, okay? So I will write it over here, okay? And what is the next important line here? That we have to find the minimum element in an array without using any sorting method. So I will take this line and I will put it over here. Okay. Now let us come at line number 6 and we will define our function name. Since this question is asking what? Find minimum element in an array. So we will write here what? Find minimum element as our function name. So find min element with a parenthesis. I will write it over here. And this will be our function name, okay? Let us come down and we will write here our approach, okay, to get this particular output, okay? Now, in this question, we are going to use what loop, okay? Why loop? Because they have clearly said don't use sorting method and we will not be using any math methods. We have math.min method, right? We can do that here, but we are not going to use that. We will be using here loop, okay? Why we need a loop? Because we will be using that loop and we will be iterating through the entire array and we will keep track of that smallest element, okay? So first of all, what we will do, we will come down and we will assume that our first element is the minimum element, or you can say our first element is the smallest element. So I will declare a variable called as a min, and to that min variable, I will assign my first element. So how will I get my first element? Since it is an array, what I am going to write? I will be writing here what? ARR of 0. So this will be our first element which I will be assigning it to the minimum variable, and I will assume that this first element is the minimum, okay? Now I will write here our loop. Now in this question, we will be using only one loop, that is a I loop. So we will start writing here our I loop, okay? So let us write it over here. So I will write here what? For, and then I will write here what? Let I is equal to, okay? Now here we are not going to start from 0, okay? From where we will start? We will start from 1. Why I am starting it from 1? Because I want to iterate through the array from the second element onwards. Why? Because first element we have already assigned it, right? So that element we will pick and we will keep a comparison with the rest of the elements, okay? So that is why I is equal to 1. Okay. And then till where it is going to run? Obviously till ARR dot length minus 1. So I will write here what? I should be less than ARR dot length. Okay. And then we are going to increment it. Okay. And now in this, what we are going to write now? So this is the iteration, right? So we are taking our minimum variable. We have stored our first element to this and we will start our loop after that element. So that is why I is equal to 1 and it is going to run till the last element. So that is why ARR dot length. Okay. Now we will come down and we will write our condition. Okay. So here we will have to compare it, right? Now you know that whenever we want to find minimum, maximum, what we have to do? We will have to compare it, right? So we will be comparing our first element with the rest of the elements. Okay. So I will come here and I will write here what? Our ARR of I should be less than our min, okay? If our ARR of I is less than our min, then I will have to update my minimum variable, okay? So I will have to do what? Update my minimum variable. So if this condition, whenever this condition is turning out to be true, then I will update my minimum variable, okay? So what it is going to get updated? I will just update with the value of the I. So what I will write here? Min will get assigned as ARR of I. That is what I am going to do. So if any element is smaller than the current minimum element, then we are going to update our minimum variable. That is why I have written min is equal to ARR of I, correct? Now let us understand the iteration along with the comparison check how it is going to do. Okay. So we will write here what when I is equal to 1 because we are starting our loop with I is equal to 1, right? So when I is equal to 1, this condition is going to be true, right? So we are going to go inside our loop and we are going to check our if condition, correct? So we are going to write here this particular condition, correct? So I will come here and what I will write now, we will do a check. So what is our ARR of I right now? It will be at a first element. So we will get here what 4, right? And what is our min? It is nothing but our 3, right? Because we are going to store our first element. So our min will have 3, right? So we will write here 4 is less than 3. No, it is false. So there is no change in the min value. So our min value will still remain as what? 3 itself. Okay. Now we will come down and we will check here what I is equal to 2. Now when I becomes 2, what we are going to check? We are going to check with 9, right? So we will write here what? 9 is less than what? Again 3 because min value didn't got updated, right? So I will write here 3. Now 9 is less than 3. No, it is again false, right? So I will write here what? False. And what will be the minimum value? Again here, it is not going to change, right? So it will be what? Min is equal to 3. Now when I becomes 3, let us see that. So when I is equal to 3, what will be our element over here? It will come as what? 1, right? Now we will write here what? 1 is less than 3 because minimum value is right now what? 3, right? So we will write here like this. Now 1 is less than 3. Yes, it is true, right? So we will get here what now? True. Now here we will have to update our min value with our ARR of I value. So you will come here and you will do this particular part. So then what you will have here, your min will be is equal to nothing but 1. Okay. Now what you are going to do, you are going to check for the next iteration, right? So what you will get, it will be I is equal to 4, right? And what is our next element? 6, right? So we will come here and we will write here what? 6 is less than what? Now 1, right? Again here it is what? False, right? So our min values doesn't get updated, right? So you will get here what? Min is equal to 1, okay? Now when I is equal to 5, so what is going to happen at 5? So we will come here and we will check our condition now. I is less than ARR dot length. Now what is the I value? 5. 5 is less than 5 because the length of the array is what? 5, right? So the condition turns out to be what? False, right? And that is why no further execution will happen. So iteration will stop and the loop is going to terminate here, correct? Finally, after iterating through the entire array, we will get our minimum element as what? 1. So I will write here what? Min is equal to 1 and this will be our minimum element in that particular array. Okay. So this will be our final approach which we are going to use it for this particular question. Okay. So only one loop, then there will be a comparison check, right? And then we are going to update our minimum value. So let us come down and implement the same thing inside our function. So we will define our function name as what? Find min element, right? So I'll write here what function and function name is what? Find min element, okay? And we will quickly invoke it here. So I will write here what? Find min element and we will write it inside this parenthesis, our input array, correct? So let us take this input array and we will pass it over here, okay? And we will quickly receive it here as well as in param. So I will write here what? ARR, correct? And let us come down and let us just console our ARR. So I will write here console.log ARR and in the terminal, let us test it out. So I will write here what? Node day 67 challenge and we will hit enter. What do you got? You got your input array, okay? Now after that, what was the first thing we have to do? We will have to assume that our first element is our minimum element, right? So let us come here and we will declare a variable called as a min and in that we are going to store what? ARR of 0. That is nothing but our first element, okay? Now let us start writing our loop. So we will what do? We will write here for let I is equal to 1 we are going to write and where it is going to end? It will be less than ARR dot length, right? And then we will write here increment I plus plus, okay? Now in this we are going to do a comparison check inside our if condition, okay? So I will write this particular condition, right? So we will come here and I will write here if, and I will write if ARR of I is less than our min. And if this condition turns out to be true, you please update our min variable with the smaller element, right? So that is why we will write here what min is equal to our ARR of I, correct? And then finally, after all the iteration is going to happen, we are going to just console our min value. So I will write here what console.log min. Okay. Now let us come here and test it in the terminal. So I will write here what node day 67 challenge and we will hit enter. Now, if you see here, we got our one, right? That means this is our minimum element from that particular array, right? I just want to show you that how many times this condition has turned out to be true, okay? So I will come here what, and I will write here what console.log, and I will just write here what true, okay? And now just let us test it in the terminal. So I will write here what node day 67 challenge and we will hit enter. What do you got? You got 3. So initially we assigned it with 3, right? And only one time it was true, right? You can see here. And that is where we are also getting only one time true in the terminal, okay? So we have successfully achieved it here, what we have done, and the output also we are getting it, okay? Now we will come here and we will invoke it with another input array, okay? So I will write here what find min element and we will write here what 67. Let us take a big numbers, okay? Because it was single digit number. Let us take a double digit and 3-digit number. 100 I will write, 56 I will write, 78 let us write, 90 let us write, okay? And now let us run it in the terminal and test it out. So I will write here what node day 67 challenge and we will hit enter. What do you got? You got 56 here. Can you see? That means it has got updated and we are getting here the smallest element. If you see which is the smallest element here, 56, right? So that is what here we are getting it. And here also only one time it has been true. Initially it was 67. After that it is 56, right? So that is why only one here true you are getting it, okay? Now let us come here and we will comment the other console.log which is not needed, okay? And we will come to our line number 32 and we will improvise this console.log statement, okay? So we will write it inside a template literal what? Minimum element from that particular array is what? Let us take this here. So minimum element in an array and we will use our array also, okay? So I will write here what? Minimum element. Let us make M capital and in that array, okay? Now, I have told you that whenever we want to write an array, we will be using a square bracket inside our template literal. So, square bracket, dollar, and then you write array. Then you will get properly in an array form, okay? Now, let us come here and we will clear the terminal and I will write here what node, day 67 challenge and we will hit enter. What do you got? Minimum element in an this array is what 1 and minimum element in an this array is what 56. Let us write here in an array, okay, and we will use here our colon also, okay. Now let us clear the terminal and we will rerun it. So I will write here what node day 67 challenge and hit enter. You got here final output as a properly written here what minimum element in an array and our array also and the value also, right? So we are getting the proper output here, okay? Now let us have a quick recap of this particular question, okay? So what was the question? We have to write a JS function to find the minimum element in an array without using sorting, and we have not used any other methods also. We have just used a loop to solve this, okay? Now if you come here, we have been provided with input and output as well, right? We understood that how to reach to this particular output. Then we came at line number 6 and 7 and we defined our function name, right? Find min element. Then from our line number 9, we started writing our approach. We understood our question and also we understood how we are going to reach to that particular output, right? And that is where we wrote a loop here. Why we need a loop? Because we need to iterate through the entire array and we have to keep the track of our smallest element, okay? So for that first thing what we did, we came here and we assumed that our first element is the minimum element and that is where we stored our first element, that is ARR of 0 to our min variable, okay? And then we wrote our for loop. What was our for loop? We wrote here I is equal to 1. Why? Because we are not starting from 0 here. We will be starting from our second element onwards. Here, this is the most important point, guys. So please remember, whenever you are doing a check like this, you have to leave the first index because you have already assigned it and start from your next element. Okay, then we iterated through the array from the second element onwards. After that, we came inside and we wrote here what? One condition to keep a check, right? That our ARR of I should be less than our min variable, correct? And if any element is found, if it is smaller, then you please update our min variable. That means if this condition turns out to be true, you update our min variable with a value of what? ARR of I, correct? Then after that, also we understood how it is going to complete the iteration and the comparison check, right? So here, if we see only one time it turned out to be true, that particular condition, and that is where only one time our min variable got updated, right? And when I is equal to 5, also here we need to see that our loop is going to terminate because the condition turns out to be false, right? And that is where we got our min value updated as what? Only with 1, correct? Then the same thing we wrote inside our function also, right? And we wrote here what? Function, and your function name was what? Find min element, and here we are receiving ARR as what? Parameter, right? Then at line number 24, we just consoled our array, and then we declared a min variable and we updated our first element of that array, right? And then we wrote here our loop where we were starting with I is equal to 1, correct? And we did a comparison check of our ARR of I should be less than min, right? And also we saw how many times we are getting true. That means how many times this condition is going to be true, correct, in the terminal. And finally, if it is true, you please update our min variable with our ARR of I, right? That is what we have done. And at line number 32, we just improvised our console.log statement by printing min value in the terminal. And at line number 34 and 35, we invoked this function 2 times, right? And we got our final output also. So let us clear the terminal and rerun it one more time. So I wrote here what? Node day 67 challenge, and we hit enter. What do you got? You got your minimum element in an array as what? 1 and 56. And also we understood in this particular line that if we have to write an array inside a template literal, what we have to use? We will have to use it inside a square bracket, then our dollar flower braces and ARR, right? That is where you will get here ARR in your terminal also. That means correctly in an array form, right? That is what we have done, okay? And this is what the question was demanding from us, okay? For both the invocations, we got our correct output, right? Now I will tell you why this challenge is important, because this challenge helps us to find the minimum element without sorting. It also saves our time and builds foundation problem solving skills which are applicable in our real world scenarios like data processing. It also strengthens our understanding of iteration and comparison technique. And that's all for today's challenge, guys. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for tomorrow's coding challenge. Keep coding, keep learning, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.